Hi, church. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are as excited as I am about this time of year. Now that we're just past Thanksgiving, it means that those of you who've been listening to Christmas music like I have since sometime before Halloween, we can finally start to be honest about what it is that we've been listening to. So hooray for that. It also means welcoming the stress of trying to figure out the perfect gift for the special someones in your life, and for all the other people who give you a gift every year for whom you feel like you must buy the obligatory gift in exchange. Don't you just love this season? All kidding aside, we're picking up with Philippians chapter 3, verse 10 again. In this passage, Paul's not writing out his Christmas list per se, but he's certainly sharing the desire of his heart, what he is longing for most. And he's got two things on his list, or maybe one thing that he talks about in two ways. So Paul says this. He says, I want to know Christ. That's his one thing. That's what tops Paul's list of what he wants most. But he goes on, I want to know Christ, yes, to know the power of his resurrection. We talked about this last time. To know Christ is to know and experience his resurrection power. I think most of us can get behind that. A little power seems pretty good. I would even say that there might be something wrong if we're not experiencing or at least longing for resurrection power in our lives. But Paul's not done. There is an and here. And Paul says, participation in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death. And that's the second thing. Now, how many of you have participation in suffering on your Christmas list? I'm guessing not a lot of us. So what in the world is Paul talking about? Now, these two ideas seem like kind of an odd pairing, don't they? You got resurrection power and the experience of suffering. Now, why would we need to suffer if we've got resurrection power? Like, shouldn't the very exercise of that power negate our suffering? And actually, for Paul and for us, God's resurrection power gives us a new perspective on suffering. It creates a new relationship between us and the suffering that we face. Because we know that Christ has triumphed over death through resurrection, we know that the suffering and death we face does not have the last word. Not only so, but because Christ suffered for us, we know that he also stands with us. He stands by our side in whatever we might endure. And that being said, resurrection power is not triumphalistic. That's a word, I'm not sure. Resurrection power, or God's power, as Paul says, is not demonstrated in our own strength, but made perfect in weakness. God demonstrated his power not by sending a legion of angels to just wipe out the Roman soldiers nailing his son to a cross. Rather, it was power demonstrated, as Paul cites in chapter 2, in his willingness to embrace incarnation, endure the cross, and then rise from the tomb. Here's another important point. Participation in Christ's sufferings, becoming like him in his death, in no way takes away from or detracts from Christ's sacrifice on our behalf. Right? There is nothing missing in Christ's atoning work that requires us to add to, right? His work is finished. Rather, it's as if Paul is alluding to Christ's own encouragement in Matthew 16. If you want to become my followers, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. We cannot know or experience Jesus, the one who took up the cross, unless we likewise take up the cross and follow him. Suffering in the Christian life, particularly suffering endured for the sake of the gospel, is the avenue for intimacy with our crucified Lord. Grace and peace.